Hey, welcome back to the Boring Show, the roughly hour-long show in which you get to see two engineers coding an app basically from scratch, making mistakes, looking things up, arguing about what to do, and so forth. This is our development show. It's not actually a Flutter tutorial per se. We do have a bunch of those. You can find them on the Google Developer channel and also some at flutter.io. So if that's your jam, you can find those there.
Also, there's a bunch of community ones.
Oh, that's
so
true.
like if you just search YouTube for Flutter tutorial, you'll find a lot of amazing tutorials.
Also true.
Yeah.
All right. So this is our second episode. In our first episode, it was kind of, we kind of did that as an experiment just to see if anybody would want to watch us code for an hour. And we got about 12,000 views as of right now. We got a bunch of comments. Seem to be some good interest there. So we're going to do some more of these. So this is our second episode. And one other thing to mention, we read through the comments on the first one. We got almost 100 something comments, I think, on the first one. We actually read through them, and we wanted to call one out right now.
Yeah, someone actually found a bug. I forgot the name. Mihai Manola found a bug in our code. So we want to address that first. And then obviously there's been a lot of other comments, mostly kind of pushing us to the more advanced topics.
Oh, that's something else we should talk about, yeah.
But first, let's fix the bug, right? So the bug was about this. If you look at the app, so this is exactly the state of the app that we left it when we stopped developing last time. And so we have this app. You can open the tile and then click on stuff and get somewhere. And we also implemented the fake reloading. So if you drag to reload, so first of all, if you reload, it will just remove the first article from the top, right? So where's the code for that? Here. So articles remove at 0, right? So that's great, but watch what the tiles that are open, what they do. So when I reload again, the opened one is the next one in the. So basically the list view only remembers which number was opened, and it doesn't it still has that number open, which is not what you want, right? You probably want to, if someone actually reloads things, you want to collapse these things, or maybe keep the one open that you had open before. And that's so thank you, Mihai, for pointing this out. I didn't see that until he pointed it out. The fix is simple. It's basically you have to tell the list view kind of the identity of each of its children, right? So normally you don't care, or the list view doesn't care, but if you somehow mutate the items of the list, then you want to say, okay, so this item is X, and even if you put it somewhere else, it's still that same item, right? Otherwise, it will just say, okay, so this item number 3 is item number 3, even though we changed the view. So anyway, so that's why most widgets, or probably all widgets, have the key argument, and you can add a key to it. Now, the key takes a string, which should be something that is unique to this particular list view, right? So in our case, it's pretty simple. We can do article URL, which we don't have at this time. We'll get to this, but let's just use text. Let's assume that all the articles are unique by the text of the article. And so now if we do this and we open that, it should just clear the opened thing, and that's probably what you want. If you wanted this to be open, then we would need to do some other stuff, but we don't have the time. I think we don't want to do that. This show is about JSON and JSON.
Yes. So that's what we're going to cover today. We got a lot of requests in the comments to do something a little bit more advanced, and so we thought JSON parsing is on the way to advance, but still something you're going to see in almost every app that's using real data. Everybody uses JSON these days to pass things around. And so we're also going to talk about testing a little bit. Also something that almost everybody's going to run into at some point. I don't know a lot about testing because I just do everything perfect the first time.
That's right.
But Filip knows a good bit about it. So.
Yeah, I have to test everything. As you can see, I do a lot of bugs, so I have to test everything. So fortunately for me, Flutter has a pretty good testing framework.
There's like 3 different ways to test, right?
That's right. So I mean, Dart itself has a testing framework called package test, which I think is pretty sweet. And then Flutter builds on that with Flutter testing framework, which lets you basically do kind of headless Flutter. And I'll show you that in a moment. And then it has like a Flutter driver thing,
it's like
which
full-on UI
like
tests.
Yes.
Okay.
So if you're like familiar with Selenium on the web, that is basically that.
Do you want to pull up the testing guide real quick just to show it to everybody?
So
yeah, we have a doc on Flutter.io that actually goes into a lot of these details as well. So that's a resource. It's Flutter.io/testing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I forgot about this, but they even have like unit versus widget with versus integration. So here's a widget test, and basically this is a smoke test. And the fun thing about this gets included whenever you create a new app. You have this test with it. Since then, we totally changed the app, so this should fail. Okay, so let's try it.
So is this built for the counter example?
Yes. And so this basically says like, pump widget. So everything in Flutter is a widget. So even your app is a widget. So you say to the tester, add this widget, and then I expect to find one widget that says 0 and no widget that says 1. And then I want to tap the thing which has an icon, which is this one, the @ icon. And if you know that app, you know what I mean. That there's an icon that lets you tap it, or fab. How is it called?
The floating action button.
Yeah,
this is the default app that we're talking about.
Yes.
If you just go new project in Flutter.
And then so you tap it, and then you say tester pump, which tells to the testing framework, hey, do things like run
a loop, run the cycle.
And then it expects one widget to say 1 and 0 widgets to say 0, right? And so that already
has
passed.
failed.
So this failed. Very soon it failed on number 18, which is the very first expect, because there's no widget anywhere here that says just 0, right? So we want to change this test. We still want to do my app. We don't need new now. And what I'm going to test is simply just that if I click on a tile, it will open. And now how I'm going to, so clicking a tile opens it.
I don't think I've ever done a widget test. This is actually good. Good for me as well.
So you do, it's all asynchronous, obviously. So you want to do, so first let's expect that you get this nice object that lets you find things. So find by type, and that's gonna be an expansion tile. And that should be, wait, what? No, no. What I want to do, so okay, so let me walk you through what I have in mind. We expect that there is no launcher icon here, right? We first need to make sure that we're not actually like having a false positive. But so we want to know that there's none of these at first, which there isn't, right?
I see.
And then we click, and then we find out that there is,
There
hopefully,
is one.
right? So So we want to find by icon, I guess. So find by icon, and it should be the launch icon, which is helpfully shown
I love
here.
those. Yeah, those
Yep.
so nice to get those previews, the icons and the colors.
And finds nothing, right? And then we do await tester tab, and again we find by type this time, and it's gonna be the expansion tile. That's what I was gonna do next, and this will find many things. So we want to say like either just click on the first one. Let's just click on the first one, and yeah, that's it. And then we need to do tester pump. I'll get to pump and settle soon. And then we want to expect that this finds exactly one widget. And now we can run it. And so you'll see this doesn't run this on the emulator. It just like creates its own kind of Flutter framework, and this passed, right? And that Flutter framework kind of like so it has everything in it. It should be the exact same thing as what you run in the emulator or in an actual device. What I'm gonna do is we can actually, so you can do Flutter test, which I just did, and so most of this is just waiting for the testing framework to go on, and then the actual test runs in like milliseconds.
We should up that font.
Oh, yes.
There we go.
Ooh, maybe not so.
Yeah, it's all right. We're just looking at this bit anyway.
Yeah, all right. But you can do Flutter run test, which is test, and look what happens. I hope, well, I'm running another thing here, so I don't want, we'll see.
So it's actually running it on device now.
Yes.
Before it was not.
Yes. So this is syncing files, and look what happens when I really need to do this. Now I'll hot reload or hot restart, and it's gonna do.
Watch this.
It's gonna it made the test, right? So it was. Let me show it again.
That's Filip making the noise, by the way. That is not part of Flutter.
Yeah. That's not part of Flutter yet.
I'm enjoying these like unescaped color codes in the output. That's interesting.
That's obviously so. That's not what you normally run. This is for you to make sure that this does what exactly you want this to do. So one thing that why it's so fast is that it's a tab, and then Flutter runs one frame basically, and then but by the time, because we don't have any fancy animation that will like create the state that we want to see after some time, but it will instantly create the state and then it will animate to it. So we can use pump, and it's very fast. If you have, and you will often have, something like, oh, I click here and then there's an animation, and then after that animation something gets created and I want to do that, you do pump and settle, which will like kind of run more fluidly. So if we do
so Flutter has, it's a single threaded Dart, single threaded, right? Let me make sure I've got all this. So you run your Flutter app, you have one thread that's doing an event loop, waiting for events from the outside, and then you also have a micro task queue, I think, which I sort of understand. But you mainly have one thread. So every time you hit pump, it's going to do one go round and process like the topmost event, I guess.
Yes.
But if you do pump and settle, it'll start and then it keeps going until there's no more events to go through, and then it'll stop.
Yes.
Okay.
Let me show you how that. So now we still our test still runs and should just finish with a success, right? It might take, if it was a lot of pump and settles, it might take a little more time because it does these things. And for our testing, we don't need this, but for our for you to see what's actually happening now, if I perform restart, you should see the. Did you see it? You should see the whole interaction because it actually waits for this to complete, right? And you can, even if you're very good at this, you can see a little target where it's tabbed. Right. So anyway, so our tests are passing, and so let me go back to here, and I don't need this. Oh, and by the way, you can do things like I want to wait for like a duration of 9 days for this to finish, and it will still finish, in milliseconds, because it's all fake.
Yeah, it'll fake a clock too, right?
Yes.
When you're doing these tests.
Yes. Yeah. But yeah, as I said, we only need this, and we have our widget test. So that's cool. And now, obviously, we would test-driven development. So what we want to do is, if we're gonna focus on JSON and parsing in general and getting things from network, but that comes later, we want to start with a test, and then it'll fail, and then you will implement that,
And then we can do some coding.
and we can do some coding.
Because we're very responsible people, and we always code this way.
Yes,
Always.
Of course. So, JSON test. This is going to be, I think, because this has nothing to do with Flutter, right? We're just passing.
Yeah, this is just straight up
JSON.
Dart. So this would be a unit test,
Yeah.
right?
So this is going to be a test, a unit test, and that so the test should parses. Oh, do we want to talk about the Hacker News API?
Oh yeah, you want to pull it up?
Yeah.
So the fine folks at Hacker News and Firebase, this is their API. And so there are two calls here that we're mostly concerned with. So there's the way that Hacker News does their API. They basically just take all their in-memory objects, which I assume are just sitting in a hash table, a distributed hash table somewhere, and they just sort of dump them into this API as is. So there are two calls that we're concerned about. There's one that gets you the top stories by ID.
Oh, yes. So something like this.
And actually click it, and we can actually see exactly what it is. There we go. So right now, those are the IDs of the top, I think, 500 or so stories on Hacker News. So we would want to get that, because that's what we're displaying. So we get those IDs, and then there's a second call, if we back up one. And I think you had it up above. There's like, get a story by ID. There we go.
Like this.
And so this is a single story, and you can fetch that by ID. You can see, I think it's 8863 is the ID for this one in the URL. And of course, this is the famous Hacker News post that announced Dropbox.
Right.
And so we need to get a list of ints. That's the first one. And then we need to be able to get this object multiple times, multiple different ones of these, and then deserialize that data into off the wire into one of our article objects that we made in the first episode. So we'll be focusing on that work, I think, for the most of the rest of this episode. And so those are the two things we need to do. So we'll need a function to take a string representation of a JSON list of ints.
So parses, how do they call it? They call this top stories?
Yeah.
Top stories. JSON. So testing framework, it just takes a bunch of tests that are done by this, and then it has expects in it. So we want to have something like, let me actually take
Yeah, you want to just grab it.
this, and maybe I don't want to print it. So we have a JSON string.
Yeah, just a giant string constant.
So that's that. And then we have, we want to expect, let's just say, okay.
So we're going to have to put a method somewhere, right?
Yes. So parse top stories is going to be a method that we don't have yet that takes the string. And we want to expect that the
What are we actually testing?
we are hopefully testing that it, like for example, the first one of these. Okay, so first is this. I know it's not the best test, but you know. So now we need to implement this. Okay. I'm gonna add it here.
Well, do you want to go ahead and add the test for the second case so that we can kind of do them both at once?
Okay. You're feeling adventurous. So this is...
Well, that way we have the test done, and then we can go to our other file.
Yep, that's true. So item looks like something like this. And again, I don't know.
Take the pretty printing off.
And so the JSON string is going to be... and this is broken because we should have this, right?
The joy of single quotes.
Are there any single quotes? Because if so...
No, there shouldn't be.
You know what? So another trick is just to do something like...
Oh, that's right. You can do the triple quote.
Yep. And for the sake of space, I'm gonna do, hey. Right. And this should be a parse item.
Yeah, they refer to them as items, I think.
Right.
Because everything in this API, like everything is one of these objects, like comments and polls and stories. They're all...
I wonder if if in this function we're going to assume that this is an article and not a comment, we should call it parse article and not item. So like this.
Okay.
And this should say something like,
does not generate exception.
that's one, but let's assume that we will have a by maybe field on that, so that it will give us an article, and the by field should be D Houston.
Okay.
Okay. So now on to a new class, I guess.
Yes, where do you want to put these?
So I was thinking about just lib, but we could do, well, yeah, it should probably.
I mean, if we're just working out how to do the JSON, we're not really touching on app state stuff yet. We could just put these as top level functions in some file.
Sure.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
But how do we? So JSON parsing.
Yeah. I mean, this is going to be a short-lived file anyway. We'll rip this out once we move on to something more.
And I just want to make sure that. So, this should give you a list of end. It's called Top Stories, and it should take a string of JSON. And this should throw now.
Is there an unimplemented? There is.
Yeah. And then, and the next one should have an article.
Which we're going to need an import for that.
Yep.
Right. Article.dart.
Yep. So parse article, again, string of JSON, and throw an unimplemented error. And we need to import this. Cool.
Boom.
So now I just want to run this test.
And so this will fail.
This will fail miserably.
How do you catch an exception in a test? Like if you know it's going to throw one.
Oh yeah, it's
like expect exception or something?
Yes, throws. And you can say throws something like throw whatever error.
I often throw cyclic initialization errors in my code, so that's cool.
Yes.
I do that all the time.
Yes, that's a feature. So okay, do you want to take over?
Yeah, we can switch. You want to?
Okay.
You want to do like an effect? We could just like switch. Okay.
That was it.
They can cut this part out. It'll look awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we're switched. All right. So now my job is to go back to JSON parsing here and parse some JSON.
Yes.
Okay. So let's start with the list of ints. So let's get rid of this. And first thing I need to do is take the string and parse it as JSON. For that, we need the handy dandy Dart convert library. Thank God that's the first result. There we go. So the Dart convert library can do this for me, and this is built in. This is not a package I have to go get, right?
Yep.
Okay. So let me go back in here. Import Dart convert. There we go. Cool. So now I can convert some stuff. And so what I'm going to use Dart convert for is just to take the string and generate that map of strings to dynamics. It's a pretty popular pattern in a lot of languages where you get you take a string of JSON, give me a map with all the fields in it. So, all right, let me do.
So while Andrew is working on this, I think what we want to do is first show you the most basic way to parse these.
That's a good point.
And so that's the one that you get with Dart itself, and then if we have time, we want to show how to do this in a more robust way.
Yeah, so that's a good point. So yeah, this is sort of the quick and easy, roll your own conversion logic way of parsing JSON in Dart. Once we get this done, and we should have, I think we're about 20 minutes in now, a little bit more, we should have time to at least go on to talk about built value, which is a package that a guy named David Morgan, I think, is the chief contributor on. It's obviously open source Dart package. You can find it on GitHub and the package manager pub. And that provides a couple things. It provides immutable objects that use builders, and it provides a very flexible plugin-based serialization and deserialization architecture. But it is much more complicated to talk about than this one, which is pretty like, I'll just write 6 lines of code and it's done kind of a deal. Okay, while we're stopped, do you want to talk about our hashtag? That might be a good time, because we didn't do that yet.
Yeah, okay.
So we have a hashtag. Yeah. This is our hashtag Boring Show. Since this is a little bit about having ongoing communication with you guys out in the community, we wanted to make sure that you can put comments on these videos. We do look at the comments. You can tweet about us using hashtag Boring Show and things like that. If you have questions about Flutter or things you'd like to see us covered, let us know, and we can look through these. And like if we see a question, we're like, oh, we know how to answer that, and it would be good to talk about on the Boring Show. If we have time, we'll answer it right here. So this is a good way for us to have a little back and forth.
Yes.
So hashtag Boring Show. All right. So first things first, I'm going to use Dart convert to take the string that's got the JSON in it and get it into a map. So I'll do final parsed equals, and then I'll do, I think it's JSON.decode, and I'll give it that.
Ooh.
Oh,
so
already messed up.
No, just that.
Oh.
We have a thing here. So either you import the convert with as something.
There we go. That's what I'm missing. But I got to rename this.
Yes.
Hold on. Let's decode JSON decode. There we go.
Right.
I'm still not used to importing things by name like that.
No, this is great. So there's gonna be times when this happens to me all the time when we have things that how do you call it, naming conflicts. So that's how you do this, right? In Dart, you just import with a prefix. Cool. So we're done.
No. So we parse it into. This should be a map at this point, I believe. We go look in here. That gives me a dynamic that will contain my. Or actually, this will be a list because I'm deconstructing a list.
But you need to tell. Oh, yeah.
Oh, you don't have your scrolling redone like I do. There we go. And so now that we have a list of ints at this point that we've parsed out, we need to convert it into a typed list of ints, which we can do as. You okay?
Yeah. No. I'm just realizing how many like custom things I have on my IDE that you will now have to fight, and I'm sorry.
That's okay. Okay. So also I misspoke earlier when I said that we'd be decoding into a map. If the JSON decoder sees a list of items, you will get a list back rather than a map. And so I'm going to get a dynamic here, and in that, which means not considered strongly typed. I'm going to convert that dynamic, which is holding a list of ints, into a strongly typed list of ints so that I can use it as one. And that's what I'm doing here. So let's call it list of IDs equals, and I'm going to make a copy. That's how I'm going to do that. So I'm going to do list sub int. I'm going to say from my parse dynamic list, like that.
Cool.
And so now I'm taking that list that I got from Dart convert, and I made a copy of it that is strongly typed that I can treat as a list of integers.
Right.
And this is a bit verbose, but I'm going to return it at
Sure.
that point. Just like that. And so let's put a breakpoint in that. Can we put breakpoints in tests? We can do that, right?
I think so. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Sure.
Find out. All right.
Well, yeah. Let's just run it first. I think if you run it, it won't hit the breakpoint, but that's okay. I think you should pass the one. Yes.
Okay.
Cool. So do you still want to?
There we go. Debug it.
Yeah. Yeah.
In theory. Connected. Hey. There we go.
All right.
Okay. So just step through this real quick. I've got my JSON string up here. Let's make this bigger. There we go. And I'll step. So parsed now is a growable list with 347 integers in it. But because this is a dynamic, we can't really treat it as one in a reliable way. So I step over that, and I get parsed and list of IDs.
Nice.
So this is a copy that is strongly typed.
Yep.
And then that gets returned.
So there's a this is basically so JSON, right? Untyped, very dynamic. We want to consume basically a string of things and this kind of dynamic blob into something very much typed. And what you're doing here is you're saying to the compiler and to Dart, this I'm sure this is a list of integers. This will fail if there's something in the string. If we put something in the string that's not an integer, this will fail miserably.
Let's watch it fail, actually.
Yeah, we could even like have a yes. Yes.
Let's save that. And let's go in here. Let's debug that again. I think there was a button for that and I missed it. But this should work.
Yeah, I've never used this.
So we'll pass parsed, because this is just parsing to a dynamics. This will work, right? And then we get a growable list with a string in it. But then when we try to do this copy, this should just choke and die right here, right? Yes. So now we ended up deeply in the Dart code. That's never good.
So yeah, so that's what happens if we just played it and not debug it and not having breakpoints, it will just throw an I think argument error. If you do the like debugging thing and you actually have a breakpoint, you will go very deeply into Dart core and see all the things that yeah. So and the type string is not a subtype of int.
There we go.
Cool. So I mean, we would probably want to test for that as well, but we won't do that now. Let's fix this now, and let's go. I think actually, why don't we keep this like just using the primitive parsing of JSON and go to parse article and do this the hard way.
So go ahead and keep doing this one with Dart convert, you mean?
Yeah. Oh, no. I meant let's just keep this as it is because it's 3 lines of code. It works. Or do you want to...
Well, because we haven't actually showed how to do Dart convert with an object. So we just used it for a list.
Oh,
we haven't done an object yet. So that might be a good thing to show. And then we can comment these out and try something else.
Yeah,
we're also going to have a new, like article.dart. This is going to have some changes in it to if we're going to use build value with it.
Yes, yes, you're right. Okay.
Okay. So in parsing article, so we're going to take the article string, and And we'll have to rename this one too. So we have the same name collision there. So now if we go back to our test, we've got this bit here. That's the entire string for the article that we're going to need to parse. So step one is going to be the same, right? So we're going to do this and say JSON decode and JSON string. Okay, and in this case, this actually is going to get me a map. So this will be a map of string to dynamic because we're parsing a single object. And then I could new up an instance of article and then just start trying to jam individual fields into it, but that's a bad idea. So what I would normally do here is go into article, and I would make a new constructor.
Can you just use this one?
I actually am going to use that one in a second.
Oh,
So,
okay.
Yeah, so I'm going to make a factory constructor.
Fancy.
Yeah.
So
we're talking about, we'll be touching on all kinds of things that I almost know how to do. So this will be fun for all of us. So you want to talk about named constructors real quick?
Yeah. So
that's fairly Dart specific.
Yes. So Dart lets you do not just one constructor, but many constructors which are named that are like article dot from JSON or article dot empty, and that's convenient. What Andrew is doing is that not only is it a named constructor, it's a factory constructor. And factory constructor is basically a function, but it seems from the caller's perspective as a constructor. And that function will just do whatever it needs to do, and then will use another constructor in that same class and return a value. So like with this, you can do things like singletons, you can do things like caching, and a bunch of other cool stuff. So are you showing it in the...
I'm looking for it.
Yeah.
I know the factory keywords there.
Yeah, I'm not sure if...
All right. Let's go back to the... let's go back to here. So what the keyword factory gets you is that you can return, you're not going to make a new instance by default. Like up here, if you do article, like there's a new instance of article that's made for your execution of the constructor and that you use as this. In a factory, you don't have that. It's just a method that can be used as a constructor and can new up an instance itself and return it. Or if you're doing object pooling behind the scenes, it can go get an instance out of a pool and return that. It can even return null. Which I'm going to do right now. So I'm going to say if JSON equals null, just to show how to do this. Return null. Deal with that.
Yeah.
That's a thing that you can do.
By the way, as you see the yellow thing, that's our IDE telling us, hey, you have this constructor. It doesn't return. In some cases, it doesn't return anything, and that's bad.
That's
right?
a problem. So let's make it return something. So let's make a new article, and we'll fill it as we're making it with this information that we're going to pull out of the JSON. So let's say return article. And I'm not going to use the new keyword because this is Dart 2.0.
Right.
So we don't have to use new anymore if we don't want to. Just like that. And let's put some properties in here. So let's see, text. I can pull... right out of
right.
This could be null though. So do we want, in theory, I don't think it ever actually is, but do you want to have like a backup text?
Sure.
Do like that.
Yeah, that's always
Just
nice
in
to
case.
see. Yes, yeah, sure.
Okay. And then we have domain, right? That's also a text field, right?
I think so.
Let's refer back to the API.
Yeah. Oh, domain is something I created just because I was lazy to actually parse anything.
Okay.
So yeah, it doesn't have domain. It has URL.
URL. Should we go back to URL?
We should. Yes,
okay.
Absolutely.
So we're going to probably break some other stuff then, but...
yeah, Shift F6.
Oh, you have real function keys. Yeah. Boop. Okay.
Cool.
So the URL will be JSON URL. You want to what? Empty string or just leave it as null?
Let's just leave things at null. Like we've shown that you can do like if the null operator. Like if this is null, then have something else. But we probably at this point we'd rather this to break spectacularly than not break and show null somewhere that we wouldn't expect.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not putting any sophisticated checking in here. I'm just sort of trusting that this data will be roughly what I think it is. Score will be JSON. Score. Actually, these I am going to put a 0. And having a null for
I'm not sure if
values.
it even shows age, by the way. I think it shows just date stamp. So that's why I'm really sorry about this, because this class was basically just me, copy pasting Hacker News and then creating something from that.
That's okay. So let's look at our actual data that we're going to get that we're mocked up. So there isn't even an age in here. There is a score
and time.
What does? Oh, there is no age. Okay.
No, that was just me. So we want.
I'm back with you now. Nope, wrong file. There we go. So do you want? Let's just take this out for now, and put it back in, or do you want to put the timestamp in?
I
Bear in mind if we put the timestamp in, I have to go figure out how to parse dates.
Let's just use it as an int for now, and that's okay. You know what? Maybe instead of trying to change all this, let's create a new article class with the JSON parsing, and just at some point we'll just switch it around, and it's probably going to be easier because now there's going to be a bunch of static errors everywhere.
Okay, what do you want to call it? Because we'll have a name collision if we use the.
What I meant was just go to JSON parsing.
Oh, you mean
just add
have a new
class.
article in here? Okay.
And then we'll figure out how to.
No, I'm with you.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's take all this out. The magic of the undo stack. Whoop.
Yep, that was probably it, wasn't it?
Okay. And that would have been my first thing that I added. So let's pull that out, go back to JSON parsing, and blort a bunch of this in.
Right, yeah, this is my fake.
I got to use the mouse here. This is.
Yeah.
Oh, these are your fake lists. Okay.
Yes.
Oh, my lord. We're going to edit all this down so nobody has to watch it. Don't worry. There we go. Okay.
I think you're...
There we go.
Oh, wow, what?
So let me then... Comments count. Let me parse this, or comment that out, see if I can format this now. Oh,
I think you have a dot something.
Yeah, you confused the formatter at this point.
If you go back up, I think you were just doing this dot something, and that's what threw it away. So you have this dot text, this dot URL, and just if you go.
I'm gonna just redo it real quick.
Okay. Yeah, that's probably way faster.
We're waking up your laptop here.
Yeah.
There we go. Okay. Okay, so now I can go in here and screw around messing with these. So this will be an int, which is the timestamp. Let's go. What do they call it?
Time.
Just time.
Yeah, sure. Why not?
Time. Score. Okay. URL. We got comments count. We don't. So that's actually kind of difficult to get, I think.
Yes.
You have to do a little work. All right, so let's pull that out then.
Yeah.
And this dot age just became this dot time. Age equals Everything should have a time.
Yeah. You're still pulling for H there.
Oh, thanks. And score. So text URL by time and score.
Yeah,
okay.
I think that's good.
Okay. And magic of format.
I think you're still maybe you're still importing the article from.
Yes.
Yeah,
So I'll need to change. Oh.
You can just Cool.
So we're back on track. All right, and then I can go back to. Let's see. Do I have any errors left in here? What do we got? Okay. Doesn't actually return one. Perfect. Okay. So now I can get back to. We're back in parse article now. So I'm going to now take the map that I got from JSON to code. I'm just going to stick it. I'm going to stick it in as the parameter to this constructor, and I'll get an article object in return. So I can say return. Actually. Article. This way I can step through and see it. Equals article from JSON.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And I'll just give it the JSON. Or parsed. Just like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I can return that article there. And I can put a little breakpoint in here. So we can step through this, but that should be good.
Okay.
I think at that point, right? Am I missing anything back here in my test?
Let's run it. Let's see. If it crashes, then we're gonna.
Now, what was the command you used to actually launch the test a second ago?
I just either this.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's not just the top stories. So I just right click on the
test. And
yeah.
There we go. Cool. I think, can you also like click over here? Yeah, you can. So I'm going to hit my breakpoint. So this is decoding the JSON string into that map for me. So I'll step here. And then if I look at variables now, I've got JSON string. Where is parsed? I should be able to look at you.
That's weird.
Interesting.
Are we on that? Are we below that line already? Oh.
There we go. Parsed. What in the world have I done? All right, stop. Hold on.
See, this is what the Boring Show is about. Looking, puzzling.
Yeah.
Can you just run it instead of?
And just actually see what happens.
Yeah.
What are we missing?
Why is it so?
Of course it did. Okay.
Okay, can we try again? Can we debug again? I just stepped through it.
Okay.
So that was something with a watcher?
I think that was just temporary weirdness. Sometimes turning it off and on.
Interesting. No. I think I want to get to the bottom of this.
Okay.
Can you run it again?
All right. So stop.
Yep.
Full stop.
And debug.
Debug. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. We didn't change the code, right?
We did not, but we added a watcher. So add the
Do you
thing.
want to take the watcher off?
How did you add it?
Oh, I'd like right-clicked here and said add to watches.
Right. You know what? Probably that's interesting, but I bet that add a watcher for article now.
This one here?
Yeah. It will complain.
Oh, there we go. Right.
Yeah. And now if you step through it. Yeah. What? Is it done?
It worked fine.
No, well, so the theory was that if you add it to watcher, it will try to like create a thing.
Like by observing it, we're changing the outcome, kind of a deal.
Yeah,
Some Heisenberg stuff.
Well, it definitely is like that. But anyway, so our tests pass.
I think somehow we got the IDE confused about which version of the file it was running.
or that?
I think we were looking at a more recent copy of the file than the test suite was actually executing. And once we stopped and started again,
Okay.
we were good.
Well, so I'll get to the bottom of this one way or another.
Okay.
And we'll report back in the next episode. This is interesting. Anyway, so the bottom line is don't use watchers and just run your tests, please. Okay. Okay, good. So you implemented this.
Yes. That took, what, 15 minutes? 20 minutes?
Yeah, and with a bunch of things. But what do we want to do now? So this is great. You can do this. And it's pretty simple. But imagine that the structure that you're getting from your API is way larger and it changes a lot. And you know what? So you probably don't want to write these things by hand.
Right.
We even showed this by example when you were trying to take the JSON of H, which doesn't exist, right? And I saw that, but normally I don't see it. So it's probably better to generate these things. So therefore, we have source generation and build value.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about source generation a little bit? Because that
Yeah.
sort of leads in. So build value is a library that will uses the source generation tech that's available in Dart to generate some code on your behalf in what's called a part file. So you'll have a main file that you use, and that will reference this other file. And you probably have more sophisticated things to talk about.
So for why source generation and not something else, right? So the thing, I mean, this is my personal opinion, but I like source generation, and source generation means that you're saying, okay, I just write this kind of code, and you'll see in a little bit what it looks like. It's basically like I want a class that kind of wraps around the article, and that class should serialize to JSON and deserialize from JSON, and then the source generation will create that implementation of that class, which will do that work for you, and it will kind of, in your case, you just write that abstract class that is just saying like what I want this to do, and then you leave the rest to the source generation. What's cool about that you can still look at the source generated source, so you can step through it. It's always code that you can look at. Whereas if if there's some kind of magic thing that will somehow parse your app, like I remember this from other technologies where things kind of just worked until they didn't.
Yeah.
And then
and then good luck.
And then yes, exactly. That you don't know what's happening. Here it's just like it's still Dart code. It's still the same thing that you would probably write. It's just you just don't need to write it. So similar to Dagger in Java, as far as I know, that where it's dependency injection framework, it's source generated, and so you can again look at the code.
And one of the things did you mention the word reflection at all?
No.
Okay. So, and the reason he didn't mention the word reflection is there is no reflection in Flutter, because Flutter compiles to a completely native ARM binary. And so I don't think you have the ability to do, even if they wanted to code in reflection. I don't think that really works that way.
I don't know that, but actually,
I know there is no reflection in Flutter. It's disallowed.
Okay.
There's a Dart mirror library, and I believe that's the reason. So there we go. Okay, so built value uses source gen. Built value is itself a package.
Oh, so yeah, before you go to build value, so using source gen, you can actually write your own source generation code, which is great. And one of our friend David Morgan did just that. He created a build source generated library for build values. And what is a build value?
So a built value is a class that is immutable once it's built. You build it using a builder function. So you say, make me a new built value. Here is this method to populate it full of data when you make it. And then once you do that, you can't mess with it. It's immutable. You can use getters to get the data out of it, but you can't change the contents. And
It's like data class or like value class, basically. Yes.
it's like, and a lot of languages have, immutable map, immutable list, immutable this and that. This is an immutable value type for Dart.
Why is it called build value?
Because of the builder methods.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is the package on pub. You can see it's already in version 5. This is a pretty popular package that a lot of people use. David has also written a bunch of articles about it, which are really great. If you want to check this out, I highly recommend them. I've read through them both at least a couple times. So let's go look at his example and get this going. I think we're going to run out of time here in about 10 minutes, but we can probably get it integrated.
Yeah.
At least the package itself.
Yeah.
And there's a README here that I think will give me the imports. No, let's go look at his example. Boop.
That's also not part of Flutter. So we need. Okay, so we did dependency for.
So there's some dependencies here, and we have dependencies for running it, and dependencies for the development environment itself for when you're building it, because there's actually Dart code that's going to be used to generate the source. So source_gen itself is Dart. And so I'm going to basically copy these wholesale out of his example and stick them in our example.
So maybe a good point for me to talk about, so dependencies versus dependencies.
Go for it.
Sorry, development dependencies. Oh, you're going to.
I'm just taking out some of these comments.
So dependencies are the things that your code uses, and the libraries that will maybe use your package will want to use. Development dependencies are the things that you need for development. So in this case, we need the build value and build collection to for our even the Flutter app to work, because the build our article will implement build value, and we want to add the build runner and build value generator dev dependencies, because we want to run the build runner, which we will show you in a second, and then we will also need to generate that source code, right? Which is the build value generator.
Let's see if I can do a package as a get. This will hopefully grab all these. Yeah, excellent. So now if I were to go down into my external libraries, which are open here, I should start. There's built collection. Built collection is the built value for collections, like lists. So you can have a built list that is also immutable. Built value is down there.
I'm so. Is this? Should it be like
indented, like
indented?
proper?
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
probably. We'll just check on that. Whoop.
Whoops.
There we go.
I'm sorry. Did I break it?
Analyzer.
Okay, that's by the way, this is a really
Are we on the bleeding edge of Flutter here?
I don't think so.
Flutter test.
Flutter taste from SDK Flutter. And can we just do, okay, so can we just remove that line? I don't know why there's a SDK.
Well, I mean, we're not going to be able to run tests without this anymore.
The SDK Flutter.
Yeah, I don't know if that'll help. That's fine.
And say any or something. Okay.
Let's try it again.
It depends on Flutter does any which doesn't exist. Interesting.
Okay, so we have a dependency issue here. How do we solve dependency issues? That's not going to get me where I want to go. So let's look at the pub spec for built value itself. Where are you? You're up here. So that's 5 days ago.
Can I look at the what pub tells us?
It's built value generator. I'm looking at the wrong thing.
What did it actually say?
So it's complaining that we have a dependency for the analyzer here.
Oh.
It's 0.32.1. And Flutter test itself see, I'm guessing that's GitHub.
Yeah, it's.
If we go look at the pub spec for this one, analyzer alpha 2. Which is pinned, right? This is not a...
Right.
So...
we might need to go back a version, maybe, of, build value.
What's the history of this? When did this last change? This is 25 days ago.
So quick hack. I have a quick hack. Can we?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, go to pubspec YAML of our class. And just do any everywhere. no, in the ones that we want to pull in.
Okay.
So this. So any says, hey, I don't really care about the exact.
Just get me something. Is this going to pull in the most recent one and then still have a conflict?
Yes. Right. So that means that we probably
5.5.0. So one version back.
Right.
In his.
You might work. You actually write, like I like to write any, so because you shouldn't have that. We already have it in URL launcher. One quick hack is to just say, hey, like, give me any, and then look at pubspec log and see what exactly you got, and then pin it on that version, right? So you can see, oh, it actually got me. What build value like 551? That's fine. And
so we got 551 here and 550. Okay. All right. So now go back and pin them.
Yes.
Okay.
But you can start with the caret. The caret says anything kind of still somewhere compatible to 551 is allowed. So 55x and maybe even 56. And all
these are the kinds of things you know when you've been on the team for more than 2 months, I guess. This is,
yes, yeah.
I look forward one day to having these Yoda-like capabilities.
We shouldn't know this. We shouldn't have to know this. But anyway, okay.
Yeah,
so,
we should point out this will get fixed. This is just a dependency compatibility issue. This will get fixed. It probably is fixed in master actually in Flutter test.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
So
right.
We have this now. We have the packages. Let's go.
Okay. So now we did a packages.get. Right. Now we can go look at how to actually do something. So let's go back into his example because I like using examples. And look at built value. Oh, back it up. Example. So let's take a look at some code that already exists. So we have some values here. So each of these classes in built value, you actually write them as an abstract class, right? And then the part file up here, this is the part, you can see the G for generated, that's the naming convention. That's going to contain an implementation of this class, if I'm not mistaken, that has a whole bunch of generated stuff in there for making it a built value. So let's go look at that real quick. So it's got the serializers in it. Let me do. So there's a very simple value builder, which is going to.
Right. So all this code is something that you don't need to write. That will be generated by the source generator.
Source gen.
But you can still look at this.
So let me see. I'm going to go back to the docs. Oh, that's not the docs. Real quick. And I just want to get another tab open here. So I think he has an example for what your class should look like. Yeah, here's the live. Yeah, I actually have a live template for IntelliJ. So I actually have this in my IntelliJ idea. You can put it in Android Studio as well. Actually, you want to just do that right now?
Yeah. Let's add it.
Android Studio, preferences, and called live templates.
Yep, I have a bunch of live templates.
Oh yeah, you do.
Yep.
So
can you put it to Dart actually instead of Flutter?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Go do plus live template. Built, I think is what I've been using.
Mm-hmm.
Class.
Nice.
And then we'll define a context. This would be in Dart. This would need to be top level, I think.
I think so.
And okay, now we'll go back into our JSON parsing here. And let's just comment this out for now.
Mm-hmm.
You go away for now. Get rid of that for now as well. And you can return null just to get rid of that error message.
Right. And we don't know what?
I'm just getting rid of all this code real quick so I can replace it.
Right.
There we go. And
fun fact, just so that you know, you can just do this, and it will.
Oh, it'll automatically cast it for me, won't it?
Yeah, it will cast it for you because it knows that you're meaning less offend.
There we go. Okay, so let me go back up here, and I'll use my build. There we go.
Ooh, love it.
Yep. So we'll call this article still.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Boop. And so that is giving me the basics. Now I'll import package build value. Boop.
Mm-hmm.
And then I need to do my part file. So this is something you would put in. So JSON parse. We should really move this into its own file in a second.
Yeah, that's fine.
Just like that.
I think you wanted G. Yeah.
Thanks. There we go.
So which doesn't exist yet.
Right.
Also, I think the live template failed here. You want underscore
$sign, article.
and then article. Yes.
There we go.
And maybe not the this one. This guy.
There we go.
No,
we keep that one up?
I think it's the first one is. I don't know. It'll complain anyway. So we'll find out.
Okay. Now we need to run source_gen, right?
Mm-hmm.
So built value also gives you a little tip for this. If I go back to it. There we go. So if you're using Flutter, and here's the exact command, which I can just run from the root directory of this project. Can I kill this?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay. And this is our app, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's see what happens if I do that. It's going to think it'll give me an error about Dart UI that it gives you every time. Oh, there we go.
Severe.
Yeah,
Okay, error and build value generator. So we did not do it right, which we know. So that's missing. So the cool thing about build value is it will actually tell you, hey, you are missing this. Please add it like that, and it actually will also.
It is there. It is. It's You're right. We need that $sign in there.
Yeah.
That's what it's complaining about. So.
Is it it though? I would be surprised, but let's see.
Oh, ye of little faith. So I think we'll still get the Dart UI error. But yeah, one of the nice things about built value being on version 5 point whatever is that they've really worked out a lot of the common errors and produce nice error messages.
Right.
It's something I like about working on Flutter in general. Like Ian and the team, you screw up something in your code, you get this paragraph long error message saying like, here's what's wrong. You probably did one of these 3 things. Yeah. Here's an article.
So here's what I like about this. So it worked. It knows that it's always the same thing. So it actually created a hash code that is it's an actual constant, which I just love. And it also has all these things that we don't use yet because we don't have anything on the article class yet. So how about we go back to the command line and do build runner watch instead of build? So you can see the kind of the iterative process. So we can you can just go back to the command line, do watch instead of build. So build runner watch.
So it's going to watch the file system.
It will watch the file system. It will still take its time to start, but from now on, changes get there very fast.
Okay, so now let's go back and add. So, question, how do we add the fields on here, right?
Yeah.
Because they're going to be getters. They have to be getters because this is now an immutable class. So we can add, what is it? Is it int get ID like that? Or is it a final? Let's go large.
Yeah, int get. Yeah,
Oh, that's
int
right?
get. Yes,
Okay.
yes. So you're saying on the kind of the main class, you're just saying I want to be able to access ID of something like that. And so did it update already?
Let's find out. It did.
Okay, so this probably so it's the source generator for build value knows that okay, so it wants an ID class. Yep, and also it will if you go to article builder, that's the class that you will use for like changing things, which you will probably not actually be using. But if you scroll down to article builder, the article builder has a getter and setter for ID. So you will like if you provide the article class itself, that's immutable, you can't change it. But the article has something called I think toBuilder, which will give you the builder class, and then you can change anything about that. So that's really nice because like if you want to provide just immutable class, you will just provide article, and in our case we will just do that. But sometimes you want to modify the class and provide another immutable article that is different, but coming
Based
from
on the one that you came with,
yes.
right? Okay, so we are now at like an hour and 10 minutes.
Oh wow, okay.
Do you want to call it now and we can finish this up in the next one? Or do you want to
Sure.
put us on? Because I'm worried that this will take like 10 minutes instead of 2 to just get the serialization stuff working.
Yes. All right.
Okay.
So we've covered a bunch of things.
Yeah, we should recap.
Yeah.
Recap.
All
I'm
right.
waiting to listen to you. Yeah.
All right. So recap. We started with a bug. We fixed the bug. We look at widget testing. We showed you how to run your widget test in an emulator so that you can see it working.
Yeah, it was really cool.
We did we just we wrote some failing unit tests for the JSON parsing. Then we went straight to implementing it in the manual .convert way, which worked. Then we found a bug, a weird IDE thing, and then we started playing around with build value, and we showed you how to the starts of having a build value thing, which is immutable and stuff like this, and that's where we.
Yeah, so this we're talking about getting communication going back and forth. This would be a good thing. If there's any part of what we just showed that you feel we skipped over or went too fast on and would like more information, we can start with that next time and go into a little more detail. So comment on that. That would be great. If you'd like some more detail about anything that you just saw us sort of attempt to cram into about 65 minutes.
Yeah. And also, if a lot of people feel like this is just going too slow and we should skip over things, or maybe just for the next time we already have this build and we just show you things, that's also fine because it takes time to do this.
Yeah. That and you want to do the hashtag again? Yeah. Don't forget, if you have questions about Flutter in general or the show or whatever, hashtag Boring Show, and we'll look for them.
Yeah. Or just comment under the YouTube video. That's
or
also
comment on the
fine.
video. We responded to a bunch of them, as hopefully y'all saw. Okay. Anything else? We good?
No. Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
See you next time, y'all.